of Israel and the governor-elect of Florida, Ron DeSantis.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me welcome the IAC to Florida. We are a pro-Israel state here. If we're not the most pro-Israel state in the country, we will be on January 8th when I take office. I can tell you that. You know, I've been blessed to be able to be involved in furthering the U.S.-Israel relationship as a member of Congress for 6 years. I was the leader in the Congress and advocating for us to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's eternal and indivisible capital and to relocate our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And I remember taking a trip over there, leading a small delegation, and we met with people from the State Department and the CIA, and they said, if you move the embassy, the world is going to come to an end. And it was a great honor for me to be there this past May, where we unveiled the new embassy in record time, really. And guess what? It has only enhanced America's prestige. It has been a huge positive for our relationship. It was the right thing to do. I've asked the president to build off that success. I think that the U.S. Should recognize Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, given the situation. Given the situation that we see in Syria, there is no way that that strategically significant land should ever be ceded to any of those actors, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's what's left of the Assad regime, whether it's these ISIS-affiliated elements. And so I think that that would be another example of bold leadership, and I urge the president to do it. I want to thank Adam Milstein, who I know is the director here. He's been a good friend of mine. I want to thank him for having me. And I also want to thank Dr. Miriam Adelson for her work. She was given the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's a great honor, but a very well-deserved honor. And she's done so much. As governor, you know, I was very involved in foreign policy, and the Congress people said, as governor, we may lose you. You're not going to be doing some of the stuff, but I'm happy to say, as governor of Florida, we will be doing a lot to further the relationship between Florida and Israel. I've already announced that my first foreign trip as governor will be to the state of Israel. And part of it is we have economic ties between Florida and Israel. I want to further those economic ties. And by the way, I don't draw any distinction between economic ties with Israelis in Tel Aviv or with Israelis in Judea and Samaria. And I've already warned companies like Airbnb that if you single out Jews in Judea and Samaria for disfavored treatment, we are going to be reviewing our BDS statutes, we are going to be reviewing our relationship, and we're going to act. And especially in light of some of the tragic events we've seen, we need to be fighting anti-Semitism on all fronts, and BDS is nothing more than a cloak for anti-Semitism. So we want to maintain strong ties economically. That's very beneficial for Florida, but I also want to develop and further relationships between some of the ingenuity and innovation we see in Israel and apply that to some of the challenges we have in Florida. For example, we've been battling things like red tide that's been very detrimental to our coast. What better place to go to leverage creativity to be able to partner with people in Florida to develop solutions for this than Israel? They are developing solutions for all types of things. So we will be doing that. And as governor, we do have the ability to act. I mean, we have some of the strongest BDS legislation in the country, and that's something that as more companies take actions like this, we need to add them on our list very quickly, and we will do that. And so people will know that if you want to do business in Florida with the state of Florida, we welcome that. But if you're going to join forces with BDS, that's a red line for us, and you're just going to forfeit being able to do business with the state of Florida. We also, as governor, I'm going to insist that we continue funding security for our Jewish day schools. When you see something happen where people are targeted because of their faith, because they're Jewish, we as governor, I have a responsibility to work with these communities to make sure that we can protect our citizens. And I don't want a Jewish parent shy away from sending their kid to get a Jewish education because they fear that may make their kid a target. So we are going to provide the funding for that to make sure that they're protected. And I want to thank the President of the United States for being somebody that I think has brought some much-needed moral clarity to our relationship with Israel. He recognizes that Israel is our strongest ally in the Middle East, the only democracy, and he's been willing to take steps like recognize our embassy, or move our embassy, but also stop funding the Palestinian Authority when they're engaging in inciting terrorism. You look at some of the textbooks that they have, they're naming sports stadiums and streets after terrorists. I was in Congress, I was happy to be a big supporter to help pass the Taylor Force Act, because it's unconscionable that we would let American dollars go to funding salaries for people who commit terrorist attacks against Americans. I also was a leader in getting the spotlight shined on when Americans are hurt by Palestinian terrorists in Israel, and we've had people like Malky Roth killed. We have the authority under U.S. law to bring those Palestinian terrorists to justice, and yet the Justice Department has not proceeded with that. And I give President Trump credit. They've at least initiated the process to extradite one of the terrorists from Jordan. Jordan hasn't complied yet. I think that they need to do that. But we have to be willing to defend our American citizens when they end up being attacked by Palestinian terrorists. And I think that the Justice Department has been willing to do that in other parts of the world, but it's almost like it's like political correctness or something. I'm sorry, I don't want that. I want justice for these victims. And so it was something that I worked on, and I hope that we can advance the ball going forward in the Congress. So I'll just say this. We have rising anti-Semitism in many parts of the world. Europe is, I think, terrible. Obviously, our country, I think, does better than a lot, but, we have some serious problems here as well. And obviously, you look in the Middle East, and there's always been a lot of problems. So we've got to stand strong against this. But here's what bugs me about it. If you look at the Middle East, you have this one country the size of New Jersey. They really had no advantages. Everyone wanted to attack them from the minute the modern state was declared. Obviously, you go back thousands of years as well. And yet, it's the most successful country in the Middle East by far. If you look at the per capita, you look at the individual liberties that people have, and the best country to be an Arab, by the way, in the Middle East is Israel. It is. So you look at the individual rights, the democracy, the Judeo values, and that's the heart of Judeo-Christian civilization. Those values are the values that undergird America. Israel is what is right with the Middle East. And so we need to make sure that we're standing with Israel, both as the United States, but even in places here like the state of Florida. So I'm very glad that the IAC decided to hold the conference here in South Florida. As governor, I'm going to make sure that we maintain direct flights from South Florida to Ben Gurion Airport. I think it's very, very important. And so I just want you to know that as governor, this state here, the state of Florida, is going to be a strong ally with our friends in Israel. It's a special relationship with our country, but I think it's also a special relationship here in the state of Florida. And I'll just say, whether you're Airbnb or any of these other companies thinking about taking action against Israel, all I can tell you is, as governor, go ahead, make my day, because I will act and act quickly. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks.